Well,
And I say then it wobbles a little bit because it's all on a tripod.
hello.
Hello.
Paul.
Hello there.
We're talking about wobbly tripods here.
It's the best place to talk about wobbly tripods because we're on a lean. There's a beach just down there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get earthquakes very often here, but there's a lot of volcanoes around.
So here we are, the other side of the elections.
Thank God.
You must be happier.
I'm sleeping better.
But not only the other side of the council, the local body elections, but we're almost right now about 1 year out, one calendar year out from the general election, which will be held next November.
Yeah, that seems to be what the indications are, looking at the schedule for Parliament next year, because that gets locked down well in advance. I think it was this morning, actually, the Prime Minister came out and said that he'll make an announcement early in the new year, which is, it's tradition. It's been like that for a while now. I think he also said we're going to sell off assets if we get elected, which is also a tradition for the National Party in their second term.
Yeah, interesting that Labour, and I haven't seen it in political history for a long time, are announcing a lot of big tickets really early out.
Yes.
From the election even being announced.
Yeah, and that's very deliberate. Yeah, they knew that their cornerstone policy was going to be a CGT. They've had many decades of experience of a CGT being run into the ground. And if you do it at short notice, there's a really good chance of being able to put a wedge in if you're opposing Labour and freaking people out about it.
I think people are disappointed that they didn't do an announcement for and pursue a capital gains tax in the previous Labour administration.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was Jacinda's call originally, and she was very, we're not going to do this if I'm in power. And then when Chippy took over, he was the same, ruling it out. I think it's really funny to see the reaction to it. But because it's so far out, it's a year out, people have time to learn about it, and it's not a complicated policy. People have time to work out what's bullshit from people opposing it and what's fact. And I think it's a really smart move to lock it down in advance, because all we're going to get for the next 12 months now is the coalition complaining. They look like they're complaining the whole time.
And, I haven't said you usually get a two-term government. It's not entirely rare, but it's more rare to have one term. But this is not in the bag for National or the coalition at all. They started from the get-go on a whole lot of policies, which you and I have talked about before. A lot of dog whistle, racist stuff, which the majority of everyday good-thinking, reasonable New Zealanders, even if they don't like some te reo language, don't like pursuing the way this government's done.
There's a really big difference between I voted Conservative because I wanted smaller government, smaller taxes, that kind of thing, versus I voted Conservative because I want to keep my foot on the neck of Māori and Pacific Island. There's a big difference there. There are some parties that are really good at those dog whistles. New Zealand First and ACT in particular are really good at running with those dog whistles because that's the base that they're talking to these days. And National, I think, is kind of running to play catch up a little bit. They need to placate their partners, and they don't really know how to sit there and say no. And they were using the same dog whistle tactics during the election, so they kind of had to deal with it.
Hasn't Winnie drawn this gender bathroom out of the biscuit tin as well?
No, I don't think he's pulled it out of the tin. He's put it back in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because as you know, the only people that can have bills in that tin are people who aren't sitting ministers. Which means for New Zealand First, they've only got 4 MPs who aren't ministers. They can only ever have 4 bills in that tin. They've introduced 14 this year. So they have to pick and choose what it is. And with the fireworks thing and jumping on that the day before Guy Fawkes and over fireworks, they had to pull something out of the biscuit tin to replace it and put the fireworks bill in. They chose to pull out this, I think it was gender definition bill. And that upset a lot of the people that are sitting there going, well, we're going to vote for you now, Winston, because you came and walked through us when we were stinking out the front of Parliament. And so he put it back in and took out a bill that would have actually set up prostate cancer, I think it was, or bowel cancer. It was like a pilot program. It could have saved up to 700 lives a year. But it's much more important, apparently, to check the bathroom bill.
I don't know, and I don't want to be trashing on the government on everything, but there's not a huge amount to celebrate here. The numbers which Labour and oppositions will take through to this campaign will be numbers of unemployment and so on. So those numbers are pretty frightening.
They're the worst it's been in a very long time.
So give me the years when you...
So that's the highest unemployment rate at the moment since 2016, John Key. And I think it was just after the GFC. Can't remember the exact dates on that one. It's the highest actual number since 1994. Ruth Richardson, just after her mother of all budgets.
Right.
So it's a really horrible time out there, and that's before you can take into consideration the 50,000 Kiwis that have flown overseas, that have moved away. The economy is not in a good place, no matter what we keep being told by Nicola. And the fact that that the National Party are already talking asset sales, that's a really bad sign. The fact that we can sit here and go, or Labour can sit there and go, for less than the amount of money that we give tobacco companies, we can set up this future wealth fund. There's a lot that the National Party and the coalition should be concerned about with the numbers going forward.
Do you have any takeaways from the previous local body election that play into the national conversation of politics?
There's actually quite a bit, I think, that central body politicians can learn from local body politics. And the big part of it's getting out and talking to your communities. Every positive local body politician out there who does well within their communities connects to them on some level. And for a central government politician, that some of them have huge areas. You look at Te Tai Tonga, for example, that's the largest electorate in the country, and it's the entire South Island and a bit of Wellington. It's really hard to connect with your community, but where you can, do it, because I think that's the key to being a good politician. It doesn't matter which party you're with. Being a good politician is somebody who looks out for your constituents.
I don't want to talk about for a long time, but what's your view and some of the reasons behind what's happening with the implosion at Te Pāti Māori?
That's a really tricky one, because to be honest, it's not a party I pay a huge amount of attention to directly.
And it has different complicated kind of nuances inside it.
I think for me personally, I'm hyper aware of the fact that I'm a middle-aged Pākehā. And so I don't always feel comfortable talking.
Is that a reveal, by the way?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever made any secret of it.
No. But what bathroom do you use, Paul? No, we won't go there.
Whatever one's closest. But I don't whakapapa Māori.
Right.
And so... And I know I can vote for Te Pāti Māori, I can vote for any political party, but when it comes to the internal machinations of Te Pāti Māori, I'm not comfortable with it myself, being able to go, because there's a lot of issues around things like tikanga that I'm not an expert on. And I think that's something that a lot of mainstream media forget as well. They'll sit there and go, big party meltdown. But there are elements of tikanga that come into how these things are dealt with within the party. You're dealing with things like people's mana, you're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff around Te Ao Māori itself. And mainstream media often whitewashes things. They might not necessarily mean to, but it does mean that you get a really skewed view of what's going on from a really Eurocentric point of view. I don't want to make that worse.
So now that, from today, 2 MPs down who now officially become independent, I think that happens straight away.
Yeah, I believe so.
How do you think, we're in an MMP environment still, and we will be, of course, next November. Will the major parties require some of these smaller ones to form? Or do you think Labour's vote might be quite strong under a very shaky first term for this?
I think Labour's they've come out strong so far. We haven't seen the first polling since they've made their big announcements. I think that's due over the next couple of weeks. So we're not sure exactly what the bounce is on it. So it's really hard to know. But we're still 11, 12 months away as well. Whatever those MPs in Te Pāti Māori decide to do, whether or not they decide, that's enough, I'm out, or if they decide to run as independents again, or if they decide to form another party, that's on them. Labour will campaign for those Māori seats no matter what. The Greens tend not to campaign in the Māori seats, and they'll work with whoever they need to work with to get into power, just like every other political party. So it is a really tough one to tell, because I know everybody likes to go, this party needs to think of this and this and this. There's technically no reason why Labour can't team up with ACT. It would never happen, but there's no technical reason why not. And I think that's something we all need to be cognizant as we go into the election. There is going to be a lot of, if you vote for Labour, you're voting for Greens and Te Pāti Māori, and a lot of, if you vote for National, you're voting for New Zealand First and ACT.
Yeah, we're very tribal.
Yes.
You mentioned, I think it was in this week's the news. Is that
this week's the news?
You made mention in my area in Kapiti, calling out our local MP Tim Costley, who's really strong and good on social media, good in terms of engagement. They're well-produced videos. They get people out there with good little local stories. He did one on the local ambulance and talk about those workers and the work they do. However, when he had a go at the new elected members in Kapiti Council, he called out at least 3, maybe 4 examples of poor judgments on spending. These examples, as I highlighted online, and you quickly found out too, were not local council. They were Greater Wellington, they were NZTA Wakakatahi's expenditure on road cones and building and a bus shelter, which Kapiti Council did support in terms of some finance towards it, but it was a Greater Wellington Regional Council spend. So I find that in calling people out is okay.
I think you have to be really careful when you're in an elected position like Tim is, to not get your facts muddled up. And for the average person, my regional council versus local council versus community board versus local, there's a lot of crossover there. And I can understand how people get confused by it. You don't want somebody like your local MP making those confusions worse. And I think that's what Tim kind of ended up doing. I don't think he did it on purpose, but I think it shows just how complicated the system can be. But Tim does occasionally jump on his socials and say things that are easy to prove is incorrect. He did the same thing around the union protests, for example. That the unions are holding you to ransom kind of stuff before the mega strike a couple of weeks ago. And there was a lot of really informative stuff that came out of that for other social media content creators to go, this is where he's wrong.
I have a real problem when any politician calls out. We have an inherent right to protest.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And long should it be held in every kind of democracy. The ones that doesn't happen, you get locked in the gulag.
Exactly. And I found that protest really fascinating. There's 20,000 people here in Auckland. And I was there. I didn't run into a single politician while I was there. There were factions there from the 3 opposition parties. I didn't see a single one of them. Not that they weren't there. I knew they were there. I saw the post and everything afterwards, but just wasn't happening. But at the same time, FINS was there, the Fire Emergency New Zealand, because they want new equipment. They need new equipment. And they were going through a few of the things that they've got issues with, some of the problems with getting in things like helicopters, for example. They were talking about the convention centre fire and how they had to get a helicopter up from Hamilton to fight that. But their management is also saying we've got that equipment here. They could only be there for an hour because they're an emergency service. They should have every right to protest the same way as everybody else, but they can't because we rely on them so much. So it's always a really fascinating thing to see how people react to that kind of protest.
So any overall sum ups of the local body, you were in a unique position of connecting dots, looking at crossovers and the intricate web that these other groups formed. But do you have any kind of...
It was really fascinating for me to look at what groups did well and what groups did poorly.
And regional as well.
Well, generally speaking, most of the groups did really poorly that came from disinformation networks. They were AstroTurf groups set up by organisations that have links to Voices for Freedom and pretended to be grassroots. They generally did really badly around the country.
Just to interrupt slightly, is that in part because in local body level, people don't want political parties of any form?
That's a big part of it, I think. Your big cities like Auckland and Wellington, they tend to have little factions of political parties. Generally, though, for everywhere else, it's not such a big thing. And you'll vote, like in Kirikiriroa, for example, in Hamilton, Tim McIndoe got in, and people know Tim McIndoe was connected to the National Party. He was the whip under John Key. It's not a secret, but he didn't run under National Party.
And there were some surprises. Incumbent Mayor Susan Reagan, of the famous Reagan dynasty, of Catherine, her mother, who I went to China with way back in the late 80s, and the incumbent mayor, I think he was a 3-term mayor in Selwyn, Sam Broughton, who was the president of Local Government New Zealand, both wiped out. Sam's more spectacularly.
I think Sam had a much higher profile because he's LGNZ, but he was also highly targeted because of that, because the people that don't want to be involved with LGNZ on the far right don't like organisations that hold them to account. And that's one of the things LGNZ's there for. LGNZ is a really good organisation as a union body, essentially, for elected officials. They don't like that. It's everyone for themselves.
They're providing extensive training right now in the aftermath of the election, right across the country. I was at one just a few days ago with a lot of my newly elected colleagues, providing background on how governance works, what you should do, how you should navigate through it. And you know, you start a new job, any new job, you will get provided with training, as you should do. And so for people who scream out, you know, these leftist LGNZs like this government want to get rid of, you know, you've got to ask what their real mission here is.
Yeah, that's it exactly. LGNZ is a really good place to be for a lot of reasons that people don't realise. There's the new Emergency Management Act, for example, where councils have a much bigger role to play in organising plans. LGNZ is going to be huge in being able to make sure that can be rolled out effectively across councils to keep us safe, you know, when the worst thing happens. And for people who are sitting there arguing, well, I don't like it because it's leftist, they're arguing they don't like it because it's looking out for other people, not looking out for themselves.
Well, look, we probably lost a number of people. They've probably fallen asleep as they're sitting in their bed right now watching this.
I don't blame them. I would do the same.
And you can't tell me much, but you have a big surprise that you're going to launch in a few days' time, and I won't.
Well, I was going to say, what day is this going out?
Well, hopefully in the next couple of days or so.
Okay, so...
Yeah, I can leave it for a couple of days.
Yeah, so if you leave it till, what's today, Monday? If you leave it till Wednesday...
I can do that.
If you leave it till Wednesday, we're launching a new show on BHN called... BHN is one of the biggest networks.
Big Hairy News.
Big Hairy Network. These days?
Sorry.
Network, because they've got a range of shows.
You don't have to be big and hairy like the two, Chewy and Pat.
No, when Pat set it up, he kind of regrets the name because he is big and hairy.
Right.
And Chewy's hairy and big as well. In certain places, not everywhere.
So what's happening?
So big hairy means like really meeting. Is what he's after.
Right.
But what we're doing is we're setting up something called The Collective, which is a group of leftist podcasters and content creators who are amazing researchers first and foremost, where we're looking at issues each month and we're going to go, okay, what have been the big issues this month? We've got people like Brie Elliot, who's doing some amazing mahi at the moment around education.
She's phenomenal. If people haven't seen Brie, I'll put some links below this of these content creators. Well, there's yourself, of course.
There's me, I'm the one there pressing the buttons.
Yeah, and Brie Elliot, and I'll put her link. She's extraordinarily impressive. For how old is she? I'm just...
Brie is actually 26.
Wow. Yeah.
And we were actually talking this morning about the fact that everybody points to her and goes, oh, you're young. Yeah. So you don't have experience or knowledge or information.
I know.
Yeah, she's a homeowner. She's got insurance. She works. She studies. Like, she is so amazingly brilliant.
She reminds me of Councillor Sophie Hamford in Kapiti, who's just retired from 2 terms on Kapiti Council, who like Brie, really well read, she's fluent te reo speaker, she knows the law, and she contributes to community. So there's Brie Elliot on this one with you?
We've got Sean Ackland, he's a teacher from West Auckland, who for some reason people seem to think his name is Auckland, but it's Ackland. He gets confused all the time. He's also an amazing researcher. He does some brilliant mahi around education, around holding particularly parties to account, because there's a lot of stuff that sort of falls under the radar. But as an educator, he can see the impact that's coming into play on the school grounds. We've got Jordan Rivers, who's a social media superstar.
He's a sensation online, Jordan.
He is.
And he cuts it through in such a kind of a friendly, accessible...
Oh, absolutely. But he's funny.
Right.
And he's such a brilliant actor. And I just kind of want to get to a point where we can turn around and go, you don't have to do this anymore, Jordan. We don't have a terrible government. You can go back to acting and having fun. So he'll be there, and me, and we'll be meeting sort of second Sunday of each month.
Wonderful.
And just going through what's happened over the last month, what issues dealing with us. We're going to be asking for sticky questions as well. We're going to wrap everything up with a sticky question each month, which is a really hard question sent in from people anonymously to go, how do we fix this problem? How do we deal with this specific issue? Because I think that kind of challenge is also really important for an audience to be aware of. So
so this will be a live show?
This will be a live show, Sunday nights. It's like the first one's coming up Sunday the 16th, I think this Sunday is.
Excellent.
7 o'clock on the BHN network. You can find it on my YouTube page as well. We'll be streaming it live there, and Facebook and all the rest of it.
Well, subscribe to all these wonderful people, from Brie Elliot to Jordan Williams. Jordan Williams, that's a terrible Freudian slip. Don't subscribe to Jordan.
No.
Well, if you want to, again. But Jordan Rivers.
Very different to Jordan Williams.
And Paul Barlow from Paul the other one, of course.
Sean Ackland is easy enough to track down. We'll have all that information as well on a specific website.
People who like your content and what I've been doing over the last few years too will love these people if they don't know them already. So,
and even if they don't, even if you lean to the other side of the political spectrum, these are amazing researchers first and foremost. And I think you might not necessarily agree with their perspective, but the research and data is really important to use in your decision-making process, especially as we go into an election year.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll wrap up on this thing. The current coalition government and its proportions of it have not been very good on social, on media, which is the new front page.
I think it depends on which fraction you're looking at, because you look at something like New Zealand First. Yeah, they're run by an octogenarian alcoholic, but but their social media game is really good in conspiracy circles.
Yeah.
Not so much outside, because people know how to look up facts and data, but inside those circles where they are more susceptible to disinformation, New Zealand First are kings. If you look at hard right areas like the social media for the Taxpayers Union or the Free Speech Union, their ACT party stands through and through. It doesn't matter what facts and details and data you give people in those groups, they will say that ACT is the best through and through, and they see it as a win no matter what. So I think factions within social media is something for people to be really wary of. Research is research, though. Good research will always give you good results.
And if you have one prediction for next year's general election, what would that be?
Do you want a big prediction or a little prediction?
Well, it's over to you.
I think that there's going to be an upset in Hamilton East.
Okay.
Yeah. In that, Hamilton East is a bellwether seat. The two people that are running both ran at the last election. One of them is a former Destiny Church member, who's an evangelical Christian these days, who's like, you know what, homeless people, I've got a bill in the tin already saying that we should get rid of them. Why are you not looking at that instead of the Prime Minister doing stuff? I suspect there could be a bit of an upset there. I hope so. Hamiltonians, if you're watching this, please do me a favour and give me an upset in Hamilton East.
Yeah, I don't see the national leader being rolled.
No.
But they're not a shoo-in for this next election.
And I think that's really interesting as well, being a year up. We've not seen that in my lifetime.
No. A bit like the huge upset for the New York mayor, we'll see this through the country, that the local body elections here, because, the Māori seats which were voted, the number of people who voted for retaining a Māori ward was more than the ones who were. But it did show that this government, that the community at large doesn't agree with that referendum.
No, it was a ridiculous referendum to put out there. If they wanted a fair referendum, then you take it out to the people on the Māori roll. And you go, what do you want as your representation? Instead of telling everybody else to make a decision.
Well, as you said on the election night, of the local body election, that the ones of territorial authorities that choose their own governance model works well for them, for mana whenua.
That's it exactly. And I think the more power and input voters have into how they're represented, the better you get as a representation model at the end.
Great. All right. Good chatting as always, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Cheers. Okay. We'll push the button now.